Rapper after rapper, rhyme after rhyme. I'ma go for yours, I'ma go for mine. I'ma go for mine, I'ma go for mine. I'ma go for mine, I'ma go for mine.
Hello, everyone. Welcome into Below the Noise, a safe space for artists to talk their creative process while showcasing their work in a hybrid interview performance setting.
Hell yeah.
Hosted by Alex Riddle, myself, Colin Cassard. You can find us on YouTube at Below the Noise. Today we welcome in analog hip-hop specialist and your mom's favorite rapper, Wizdumb. That's right.
Welcome.
You guys got good coffee down there, man.
It's good coffee. It's good coffee. Hailing from the 206, Wiz decided to grace our presence with a performance on the legendary SP-1200. And as you can see by the length, girth, shape, and heft, it is it is a hefty burden. So thanks for coming in, Wiz.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Dope performance.
Thanks. Yeah, there's a little space in between joints, and then it takes a couple minutes.
That happens. So yeah, that first joint, Go For Yours. Tell us a little bit about the process that you started making that beat. I assume you start with sample.
Yeah, usually like when I'm processing records, either with stuff I'm putting on Discogs or like whatever, or just listening to stuff that I bought recently. If I hear something up in my apartment, because you've been in my place, I have my basement in my studio in the basement, but like yeah, I'll make notes on the back of records. I'll like write A1 or B3 or whatever track it is, and I'll write break or sample, or I'll put, if it's something I'm going to DJ with, I'll write the BPM. But yeah, that was from this Brazilian record called Som Ambiente. Which is actually Marcos Valle and Azimuth's first record, but if you look on it, it doesn't tell you any of their names. It's just it's like some weird library record from Brazil.
Dope.
In the 60s.
These guys are legendary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And rest in peace, Ivan Conti, the drummer
Yeah.
from Azimuth. He just passed away last week. And anyways, yeah, so I heard that joint, and I was like, oh, that's like what my boy Drew will call a power loop. So I wrote a little note, and then I went down to the studio that day, and I usually start with the drums. I'll pull those off other records, but yeah, I sampled that into I use this with the MPC 3000, and the reason I do that is because MPC 3000 is way easier to just chop stuff on. It's quicker workflow. I mean, this is pretty good too, but I mean, I started using MPCs first, and also this is mono. So it's on the MPC 3000 stereo, but you can sample mono left or right, so I can isolate stuff, so I can figure out which side of the record or the groove I want to sample. So I'll sample into there and I'll chop it up. And then it also gives me the ability to speed stuff up, because this only has 10 seconds to sampling time. So I can speed shit up in the 3000 and then put it into here, and I can save time that way, so I can stretch 10 seconds into like 28 seconds.
That's so cool. That's such an awesome workaround.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
I feel like you'd never know that if this wasn't like your thing. You know what I mean? Like, you don't.
Back in the day, people wanted to try to get the most out of it, and that's what a lot of people love about this is the artifacts you get when you pitch down in here. It's like this ring modulation kind of thing. So yeah, but I'll start with the loop, and it just kind of goes from there. I'll make the drums, I'll loop the stuff. I got the low pass filters on the back that my buddy Jazz Cat Matt Barron out in the UK put in for me, and I use that. I'll run the sample through there, put a low pass on it, and then find little things.
So these are filters you added after the fact.
Yeah, there's like a low pass, high pass. It's like resonance, I guess, frequency, and then a low pass, high pass. Yeah,
that's really cool.
Pretty wild. Yeah.
Yeah. You ever use the old like MPC filter modules?
I had those at one point.
Yeah.
I regret selling them. Actually, Joe has those.
I was just about to say, you know Joe Mousepad, right? Yeah, I was hanging out with him making some music like a while back, and he showed me. I was like, damn, that thing sounds good.
So good. And I regret selling those. And back in the day, they weren't shit. You could get them for like $50-$60, and now they're
kind of hard to find. Yeah, they're.
I had the actual. There's like a rack that goes on the side of the MPC that holds them right here. Yeah, it's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, hell yeah. When so you said you start with the drums. When you start with the drums, like, are you starting with completely fresh drum sounds every time from a new break? Do you have sort of staples that you like to either use on their own or layer in?
I'll do drum layering. I don't use kits really ever. Sometimes I will, but it's rare. Like, I like to try to have everything from vinyl. It's just the way I learn, man. And I do, actually, me and Specs do the same thing. We just have a crate downstairs on the floor that says drums. And it was just like, it's all different records with breaks on them. And I have my favorite ones in there that I can pull from. I know Pete Rock does that too. He's like, he's got his 4 drum records that he samples from, So, yeah, I just got a crate for drums. And then I took my 45 record collection, and I pulled out all the ones that have these crazy breaks on them, and I digitized them. I just sampled them all into my MPC, and then I made like a library so I can just load those on the fly if I want to sample any of those. Yeah.
That's pretty legit.
Yeah.
Do you have like, when you're making beats, do you have a typical, a formula of like a maximum amount of layers or anything like, or?
Well, it's like I said, it depends on what I'm making.
I guess
to
it,
be
you're,
on this.
yeah.
It's very limited, so you can only do so much. That's why there's a lot of echoing. You hear the horns going because you're trying to make the most of what you can with the least amount of shit, you know. So, but if I'm like using my MPC, I'll be layering all kinds of stuff. I'll take big long loops, and I'll really like celebrate the 16-bit sampling and sample time in that. But this is more about making the most out of 10 seconds, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, I get stoked when I squeeze in like a ton of crazy shit into 10 seconds. It's really amazing what you can do with that. In fact, this has changed my whole beat making, the way I even look at sampling now. I used to just take big things and chop shit up, and because I was on the MPC, even though that's a limited thing now with all the new technology, I still had more sampling time, so I was just more liberal with my sampling. On here, it's like I'm taking one sound and I'm making as much as I can with that, whether I gotta pitch it, whether I gotta filter it, echo it, whatever.
Maximizing the ingredients.
Yeah.
So
Would you say that kind of limitation, from the technology in this case, or like limitations that you might place on yourself, do you think that like breeds a certain type of creativity that's like part of your sound, that's part of your workflow?
For me, at least, I find that having limitations, having some sort of I don't know, it's like boundaries, and learning how to stretch those limitations, it makes me more creative. Because I feel like if like nothing against Ableton and all this amazing stuff that people make great music on, that stuff I've always found like I tend to overproduce if I try to ever use anything like that. I just kind of get lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
It's like I
feel it.
Okay, what more can I do to this?
the first time I bought a synthesizer, I literally like for like 6 hours was just messing with the sounds and stuff like that.
Too.
And
that's
it
a
gets
whole
trippy.
other.
So I understand.
It's interesting because I feel like I know for myself, like I produce in the digital realm. We're sort of in a hybrid environment, but from a computer, and it's like I often find that I have to create those limitations and like set them out intentionally beforehand. Where it's like I'm gonna make something and I'm gonna make it like this, sort of following like it's like I've got a 909 over there, right?
Yeah,
it's like sometimes it might be like, okay, I'm gonna like start from here to get these limitations, but that's because it imposes none of them on you from the get-go. Like you really, it's so easy to just get lost because you can do anything.
It's
such
an
it's
iconic sound, though. It's just some things you can't emulate. I feel like that's what this is all about to me. Like not only the historical aspects of it, but just the punchiness and like there's something just to be said for the ROMs and all the even the technology or the type of metals they were using back in the day to make the boards in this. That contribute to that.
It's certainly an iconic and historic piece of gear. I mean, I think people don't even realize necessarily like how much this is the sound of like an entire era of hip hop.
And it's funny when I got it and I started making stuff on it. And when I go back and listen to all this rap music I grew up listening to, I hear like I'm like that's the SP. I can just hear it and I can be like I know exactly how they did that. And I know And I'm spoiled having these filters on the back, so that wasn't a thing back then. People had to use rack gear externally. People use it with the S950 all the time. So another Akai product. This was really dope.
So as someone, I mean, you said you started with the MPCs, obviously.
My first sampler was the Dr. Sample 202. I had that, and I had the EPS.
I remember those. I remember those things.
And then I had the EPS 16, which was the I had the EPSM, which is the Ensoniq sampler, rack sampler that came out before the ASR 10, and but it wasn't neither of those had sequencers on them, so they were just samplers. So what I would do is I'd make these I'd make loops. I'd like sample drum breaks and loop them on my 202, and then I would process samples through my EPSM, and I would trigger them together while recording to a cassette tape, and I would do this thing called pause tape loops, which was like pause, record, play, and then you hit the things, and then you resample them back into your thing, and then you re-record that back onto the tape. So it's just like this.
Yeah, you gotta print back to get all the like artificial layers,
it's like copy
right?
and pasting,
That's
analog style.
That's what Phil Spector did back in the day in order to, make the Ronettes sound so much bigger.
Yep.
They just copied and pasted over the tape, and were just like, oh, we can actually make 40 layers on this thing.
Right.
And it was like,
I mean, it was common when you had really limited track recording, right? Is it's like
but he was the first one to do it, I think, in the pop realm.
Yeah,
so
and it's like they would do things like you record a drum with all 4 tracks of your tape machine, right? And then you print those to a stereo tape machine, and then you maybe print that back in mono to the original 4-track, And you do this in loops and layers until you've got all your parts, So
yeah,
it's cool. It's people don't really work like that anymore.
Yeah, and it's also just how I learned. I didn't have anything.
Sure, yeah.
And
limitations, right?
So I just learned having gear. If I learned on a computer, I mean, I used Fruity Loops a couple times. I dabbled in that, but I never just. There's something. There's more human like to tap stuff. I like to program. So
some of us are hands-on learners, and
some
of us are, ideas learners, and so to speak. But as I was going to ask, so you're doing the MPC, SP, all of these things. Do you have a favorite drum machine to produce on? Is it this at this point?
I think when people ask me this question, this is obviously my favorite sampler of all time, probably. But if I was going to like Beat War or something, and some like choose your weapon type thing, I'd probably pick the MPC 2000, which was my first MPC, and I still own it, the classic, not the XL, and it's, I don't know, that's the one sampler that I like everything like the back of my hand, dude. I could use that thing with my eyes closed, and it's so powerful, and it's got that jog wheel, which I wish the XL had or all the other MPCs had. And yeah, that would probably be my thing, because I've made so much music on that thing. I mean, 15 years of music almost was made on that. But this is probably my favorite, like sound wise, and like just it's so much fun, dude. It's like playing a video game. I don't know. It's so natural. I know it doesn't. It's really simple. There's like a.
It almost looks too simple.
It's a button for every function, basically. Yeah.
Like when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's it. Kind of like it's one of those things where it's like you hear all the legend of it. I mean, obviously all the Pete Rock and everything. Like so many classic records.
I was so intimidated by the little ass screen. I was like, how am I supposed to,
what's happening?
It's so easy. But then I thought about it. I was using the 202 or the 303 or the 404, and those don't even have a screen. It's got like that, digital clock thing or whatever.
Yeah.
So I picked it up pretty quick. Yeah. After using MPCs for years, it's basically the same thing. It's just more auditory rather than visual.
Yeah. I think that was what intimidated me. I'm a pretty visual learner, and I remember when I bought a MPC 500. I want to say, is that the little one? MPC, yeah. So I bought one of those, and I was that tiny little screen like that, and I was just like, oh shit, like I don't know.
Yeah, it's the same type of screen. I don't know if I could
rock this. And I think Ian ended up buying one around the same time, and he obviously learned that thing.
Shout
like
out to my man Wally Maggs. Okay, Funk now, right?
All of the above.
All of the above. Flights, luxury.
Yes. He's the greatest. It's the greatest.
Yeah.
But that being said, we're going to go into another track from your SP 1200 here. This next one is called Farley.
Farfalle.
Farfalle.
It's an Italian word.
What does it mean?
I'm not sure.
Pasta.
Pasta? Yeah.
It's a type of pasta?
Well, that's Farfalle Diavolo. I think that's a type of pasta. I think Farfalle is...
It's the shape.
Is it? It's a shape of pasta, like a ribbon or something, I thought.
Okay. Getting our Italian lessons from our local Italian.
The more you know, the more you know.
I'll tell you, as I'm Italian. Hey.
All right, so yeah.
About it.
All right.
Let's give it a listen.
go. Haha, you know the deal. This is really dope.
Oh, that was a good one.
Oh wow, that was great.
Shit was fucking fire.
Yeah, so this one, there were some very soothing elements in this beat. I want to ask you a little bit about that sample that you used. Had some very soothing vocal choral elements to it, as well as some instrumentation that I couldn't pick out.
So
Let's talk about it.
start in Poland. So there's the Polish jazz scene
Oh.
back in the day, and the big superstars out of there at the time were Michael Urbaniak, who was a violin player. He's still around, and his wife Ursula Dudziak, and she was like one of the most groundbreaking like vocal performers, jazz singers, because she was doing this stuff where she was one of the first singers that used like effects pedals on her voice, and she would do like this weird like almost it's so weird how like Brazil and Poland seem to have this similar style of like the rhythmic, almost not beatboxing, but singing like a kind of stuff.
Like almost like a scatting beatboxing.
Almost like a scatting thing. And that was her whole thing. She would do this like weird space chirping with like effects pedals and reverb and stuff. She's like, a lot of
It's a
Laura
space
Finesse
cricket.
joints were he was sampling in her stuff.
Okay.
Anyways, they were like this power couple who teamed up with the Brazilian couple, which was Flora Prime and Ayrton Moreira. And they became like really big players in CTI and not Verve, but other label. And they'd play together a lot. And that record is called the Nacton, and it was the Michael Urbaniak fusion group or something like that, which is Michael Urbaniak, Ursula Dudziak is doing the vocals, Ayrton, Flora sings on there too, Flora Parim, and their whole style was kind of like this jazz prog fusion thing, jazz rock, I guess you'd call it. And every time I see the records, I buy them because they're just so chock full of just open sounds like that. And that one I saw on the wall. I was down in Jankuland in Portland, and I've been wanting that record forever. I bought it, and I came home, and I sampled it, made that beat or whatever. But a couple days ago, I was like going through records for something, I can't remember. So these guys were over buying records for me, and somebody was looking for this one jazz record, and I was looking through there, and I found that I already had a copy of it. And I was like, I just paid like way too much money for this. That happens a lot. But that was one I was sure I didn't have, man.
You got too many records.
Yeah.
You gotta
Yes, I
go.
do.
Have you ever like digitized your collection, like like digitized a list? I mean, you use Discogs, I know, but
Well, yeah, when I DJ, I'll record shit in Serato. That if I'm someone traveling and I can't carry all these records with me. So yeah, I'll like especially like my boogie and dance tracks. I'll digitize that stuff so I have it to DJ out. Plus, it sounds like vinyl that way. You're recording straight from vinyl and it sounds big.
well, I imagine it can be a risk to travel with a lot of these records that are
Exactly.
classics,
I try not to.
you know?
I did bring 45s down for our thing on Thursday, but yeah, I try not to. Yeah.
yeah.
Plus, I gotta have space to bring records home.
Yeah.
So,
I hear that. Yeah, digging in every city.
Yeah,
it's impressive to know.
touring with Durazo, that was always the thing, right? It was like we'd go into a city and, about 45 minutes out, someone else is driving and he's there finding the record shops and then directions straight to the record shop. We pull into the city, pull into the parking lot, and he's like, you guys can dig or you can not dig, but we're not leaving until we're going to the show. And it's like, yeah, all right.
I always
got a lot of great records that way.
I always admired Durazo's, him and like my buddy Zach too, and Dynamite D. They all knew the break shit so well. They'd pull out all these records
Just
that I
spot
looked
them,
over
just
forever.
Well, he'd
just from the artwork.
on the
Like,
records all the time.
Yeah.
Just be like, there's a drum break on this.
You
track
pull out the most
Yeah.
like garbage, like I don't know, Floyd Kramer record or some shit, and it says break on it. I was like, this? I wouldn't pay 10 cents for this, dude.
Well,
And I did it, and I was like, and Zach be doing that shit to me all the time, pulling out these dollar records I see all the time that I would never buy in a million years, and they have like the craziest drum, just a drum fill or like some weird. I'm like, whoa, that was a really good snare. Holy shit, that's worth $1 to me.
yeah.
Yeah.
I assume that's the legendary Zach Hendricks.
Yeah, shout out to Zach Hendricks, Insult to Injury, Del the Funky Homo Sapiens, touring DJ for a long time.
I remember seeing him at the Pickford Dream Space in Bellingham, Washington. I was still in high school. It was probably 2005. And Del and Buku 1 played. Buku was like freestyling and doing like ollies and shit and kickflips on stage. That was my...
Yeah, Buku, yeah. He's good friends with Buku, yeah.
Yeah, and that was... But I remembered Zach crushing the DJ set.
Yeah, he's incredible. One of the best DJs in like the whole Northwest, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Seriously. And one of the most knowledgeable record people ever. He's taught me almost everything I know. I mean, I got a lot of mentors in the record world, but he was definitely one of my regular people that like I'm always calling up to ask questions about shit. And he'll always tell me, And he's always sharing gems with me all the time too, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always appreciative when the veterans, are open to sharing the craft and
Got to pass it on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's how it thrives,
For real.
I mean, especially for stuff like records and, traditional ways of sampling. It's like, it's out there, of course, because of the internet, but I feel like it's the kind of thing like you learn it from someone.
Yeah.
I
I wouldn't know half the shit I know if it wasn't for these people I grew up listening to that like became my friends, and like Specs and Leland and Zach and Mocha Only and Count Bass D and MF Grimm, all these dudes that like I got to like build relationships with and like game me up on all this stuff. I'm pretty fortunate for that. My dad too, he taught me a lot about shit. So
Yep.
yeah.
Well, you just mentioned some artists that you've had a chance to build with. Would you say, do you have any producers that you would say that like inspired your craft as far
Definitely.
as like
I mean, for me, like Paul C, obviously, I think he's like one of the most important producers of all time. He died at such a young age, it's sad, and he was like one of the most pioneering dudes that used this machine back in the day. He was chopping up breaks, and like the way he would just sample these 45s, these old funk 40 soul 45s, and just make something funky. A lot of Eric B and Rakim classics were made was him, and I think that's really neat. And he was doing that in like 86, 87. Like the precursor to boom bap stuff, but he was like doing that before it wasn't even a thing, Another one, Godfather Don's a big one for me. Shout out to you for finding that record for me yesterday.
Hazardous.
Yeah, his first record. It's a repop, but some records I don't buy a lot of reissues, but sometimes you just gotta, because that's such a good record.
You just want to listen to it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna find one for less than like $200. I know that. So, and I'll pay that if I find one, but I haven't found one yet. But Godfather Don, I like the dudes that produce and rap. I call them polymaths and do everything.
Eric Sermon. He's always
Eric
one of my
Sermon's,
favorites.
yeah, another big one. Yeah, I love Eric Sermon. But yeah, Godfather Don. I love Buck Wild. I I love, all over the spectrum. This guy named Fat John is so incredible to me.
That dude's hella underrated.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
every time I hear his music, I'm like, how is this guy not more famous? And he's
I
got like a
know.
lot of shit too.
I know. And
I think shout out to Wally again. I think Wally showed him to me.
Yeah. I got into him through this group. He was in this group called 5Ds back in the day. They're like really the only really like more upbeat kind of, I don't want to say future beat, but just like dancey hip hop stuff that was coming out of Ohio. And I found this record called Kinky Nasty on CD at the Redmond Valley Village, and I bought it. And then I was like, these beats are fucking insane, dude. And it was Fat John, who would later I'd find out was like down with Nujabes and all that shit. But Paul C, Godfather Don, Buck Wild, Fat John, Lord Finesse, obviously, Large Pro. Shout out to my man Large Pro. My man Specs One, big time. Just growing up around him and like seeing how he worked, and he kind of really showed me how like about minimalism and how just it doesn't have to sound clean, doesn't have to be overproduced. It's like a high art, man. I don't know how to explain it. Me and Mocha were talking about that too, how what we do is kind of a form of high art, because not everybody can do it, but everybody attempts to buy the gear and stuff. But it's more than just owning the gear. It's like going out and digging and, actively trying to find shit. And I'm not saying that like, I'm not bragging, but it's just like I do it because I have this like weird encyclopedic mind state like my dad had. I just like to, Renaissance man. I like to learn. I don't know. I think that's important. I do it for myself because I want to learn. I don't care what I make. I don't care what other people get from it. Really, it's more just like I like to learn about shit.
I mean, you got like an encyclopedia of knowledge. Every like. Unfortunately, your social media, like on Instagram, there's a lot of, rest in peace to this person, but because a lot of the greats are dying, so it sucks that like death is like that. But it's, every time you post something about it, I'm like, oh, this is another legend that I'm getting to learn about. So I'd like to say I appreciate you passing along your knowledge, even if it comes at a morbid.
It's just it breaks my heart when these people don't get the love they ever deserved, man. And like I tell this to Specs all the time. It's like, I'm not about to let you get Jay Dillard, man. Specs One is like he's been making music in Seattle like since the 80s, like rapping and beats, and he really paved the way for all of us out there, and he's still just criminally slept on and underrated. So I like to, pay my dues when I can to people that inspired me. Okay.
For real.
Yeah.
And if you get a chance, go listen to Elevators on Bandcamp.
Specs One and E Sharp, 1993, 94.
Yeah, we'll drop the link in the description for that album because that shit's classic, and I just got the chance to hear it recently.
TBC Crew. Sorry, I'm gonna give you guys a little Seattle rap history here.
Let's do it.
The True Believers Crew, where it was Specs One, Supreme LaRock, Danny, Bean One, King Otto, Toxic, I can't remember. Man, there's so many of them. Pro Mike. I think Wordsayer was part of it. There's a legendary Seattle b-boy rap graffiti crew, the True Believers Crew, TBC, and E Sharp and Specs were part of that. Yeah, I think Vitamin D was part of that too.
Yeah, Vitamin D was Vitamin D and Jake One producing the Gift of Gab album was my intro into the Seattle beat scene, because as I'm from Bellingham.
Textiles too is another one. My man Tracy. Sorry, Tracy.
Yeah, I mean, with a crew that big, it's always tough. It's like you always end up leaving someone out. Someone gets hurt. And it's like I was just trying to do the good thing. But yeah, you got some Mos Def cuts, some Mos Def sample drops. Vocal cuts on this joint.
I've always used that bucka for my just to press, because I feel like when I'm on stage and I'm just hitting play on there, I'm just standing there and everyone's
it's
just
the most.
It's not very.
Yeah.
That's why I started rapping. I was doing something.
Yeah. All right. So we're about to go into another track. As we were just talking about, this one is called Precaution. correct?
That's what I wrote on the floppy disk. So yeah,
And that
I guess
is,
that's what we call
is that
it.
a brand Nubian sample that I heard in there?
Yeah, it was good. Good ear.
Yeah, good ear.
That was that was Grand Poobah, obviously.
Poobie.
Grand Poobah, honey.
Yes, sir. All right. So yeah, we're gonna go into Precaution here. Track 3 from Wiz. So let's get into it.
To this, you better take precaution. At the back when you hook and make sure it's no distortion. You wanna swing to this, you better take precaution. That's right, that's right, that's right, that's right. You wanna swing to this, you better take precaution. At the back when you hook and make sure it's no distortion. You wanna swing to this, you better take precaution. That's right, that's right, that's right, that's right. You better take precaution. To this, you better take precaution. At the back when you hook and make sure it's no distortion. You wanna swing to this, you better take precaution. That's right, that's right, that's right, that's right. You wanna swing to this, you better take precaution. At the back when you hook and make sure it's no distortion. You wanna swing to this, you better take precaution. That's right, that's right, that's right, that's right. The beat.
That's right, that's right, that's right.
That's right, 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 that's right.
So yeah, I love the brand Nubian flip, obviously, as I mentioned at the start. I gotta say, one of my favorite elements that you don't see in hip hop anymore is the, I mean, I think DJ Premier was probably the one who started it, but it's the hook that is just, like 3 samples chopped up. I love that shit.
Yeah. I think I always credit Premier for having the cleanest. He doesn't get all technical with the scratches. These stabs like. I've always loved that sound. Me and Specs were talking about that the other day too. He's not. I love Premier. He's not my all-time favorite producer, but
he's clean.
He's very clean, and his cuts are like they're perfect. Every time I hear him, like
I don't think Premier has like a note, like any note out of place. In his shit,
he
it's
does
precise.
He cleans it, and it's always sounds good. I mean, that's his sound, man.
Yeah. But are there any, like for me, the hook sample, so to speak, are there any elements of hip hop that you want to see like brought back? I mean, like you don't really see breakdancing anymore, unfortunately. There's so many foundational elements.
There's a huge b-boy scene in Seattle. It's really weird.
Well, that's legit. I mean,
yeah. I think
that's one of the things I always love.
There's a big Filipino population up there, and they a lot of the b-boys are Filipinos, and shout out to my man Dufon too. He's like at the forefront of the whole b-boy shit out there. Orb, another legendary Seattle rapper. Check him out. Orb, the so-called musicians. But I don't know. I guess something that could bring back. I mean everything, but I would like to see. And a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this. We were talking about this earlier. I'm tired of just these. I get finding a dope loop, and I understand that's what we do. I'd like to see people put more effort into like production a little bit, because I feel like all these new rappers are just they just loop these records and they don't do anything. They don't have drums, they don't filter it, they don't chop it, they don't manipulate it in some sort of way, and they're calling themselves producers, and that kind of, it's like, no, dude, you're just like, you're a digger at that point. And a lot of times you're not even digging for the records, you're listening on YouTube or whatever. And
that's a great point. And you're listening to blogs.
And that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. I sample from YouTube too.
I wholeheartedly share that opinion with you, and I get a tremendous amount of hate for when I say that. People are like, they feel really, really precious about it, and like, I don't know, personally, like, I just can't get behind the like, this is just a sample, and like maybe you added a snare drum on top of it. You know what I mean?
Even if you added a snare, that's more than
right. No, for sure.
There's nothing wrong with minimalism. I believe in minimalism as a construct, and all my stuff's real simple. But for me, I feel like hip hop, I mean, the root of it's a beat driven music. It's about feeling that kick in your all dance music. All I should say all black music is rooted in the beat. Not just it's about making shit sound big, or I don't know. And I've always, his drums are so important to me. But that being said, I'm not saying, because I've just looped stuff and rapped on it too, but a lot of these new rap records I hear, just every track is just that, and it's just sleepy to me, and it's just like, you're doing the bare minimum.
Yeah, and I think
it's just I have
a hard time getting through those records, because it's just like, I feel like I'm endlessly waiting for the drop.
Right.
Like I'm like, it's like this like tease. It's just,
I get the argument that it's to let the MC shine, or let them, and I get that. I understand that, but you can do more to it. You don't have to add drums. You can filter it. You can chop it. You can do something to make it yours. Otherwise, it's Oscar Peterson just made your song. It's just a loop, or Bob James, or whatever you're deciding to sample.
Right.
And sometimes it's actually distracting to the song. Like it actually muddies it, because sometimes you'll hear these loops and they have like vocals in them.
Yeah.
And going back to like the lazy, like when they're not doing anything to it, they're not separating space for, the actual vocals, and so you just end up having like clashing frequencies, and it sounds a lot worse.
Yeah.
And so that is the danger with minimalism, is like, people could see a Jackson Pollock painting and be like, oh, I could do that.
Well, there's minimalism that's driven from a place of intention, and that's like an artistic, creative decision. And then there's minimalism that is sort of like just not putting the effort in. It's just right.
It's just kind of.
And it's like you kind of.
It's just like, you're not doing anything.
Right.
You just found a loop. Anybody could do that.
Right.
Anybody that knows how to.
It's like, especially on YouTube, and like with the ease of access now, it's like, should you go to like Funked Up East, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden, boom, there you go, 100 songs, right? And it's like,
man, I don't know. I just, it's so important to me to where this music came from, and it's, I mean, it came from being poor. It really did. It came from people that had nothing, couldn't afford to buy guitars and this shit. Stuff, it's pianos and stuff and keyboards, but they all had record players in their house, and their parents all had records laying around. And they had like a home stereo system, and they made what they could from that, and it was all about recycling from what you had and all this stuff that was already made. And
it's like a collage in a way, where it's like
collage,
art created from other art.
Exactly.
And
it's about recycling.
Like
that's the beauty of it, though.
It's about taking something old, making it new again, and giving it a new life.
It's an interpretation, right? It's like, it's
when you're just lifting straight up and not doing anything to it. It's just the same. It's not recycling something. It's just kind of like, I don't know.
There's a saying that's like, great artists steal.
Yeah.
But they never copy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And it's like, like we're all a product of our influences, we're all going to draw inspiration or sources from where we can. And like, for I would say arguably most producers don't necessarily have a background as an instrumentalist or as a studio engineer, right? So it's like, you do with what you have, but it's this manifestation where it's like, you're you're taking your influences, be they like physical, literal samples or things that you hear, and you're interpreting them, you know, into something new. So
I think also when I say that, I think like a lot of the backlash they get is from rappers too. And I say, look, I'm not attacking the rapper that's rapping on the song. Right. It's hard for me. I mean, coming from a producer background, I'm always hearing the beat, the instrumental first before the raps. I mean, I love the raps, but if I can't get into the rhythm of the song or whatever, then it's just like, I guess if I was a fan of poets or something, I could be into that.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. A while back, this was probably like, a year or two ago, I was doing a session with Cavalier. Shout out to Cavalier, who is one of my all-time favorite rappers. I mean, the guy, it's like sometimes I even struggle to call him a rapper. It's more like poetry, right? And we were having this exact conversation sitting in the studio. And, he sort of put it to me where it was like, you got to think of this as like both a celebration of like the history and tradition of rapping and like the lyricism, but also that like the music component isn't just a bed for the rapper on, but that it in and of itself is an homage in a pure form, unchanged from something that has like a deep cultural significance. And so like I totally get that. I just still struggle to get through those. Yeah. But you made me think of that with the talking about it like, it's like poetry. It is. It's just sort of a different lens through which to look at the art. Right. Right. Because I already know that when I'm making these beats, I am stealing other people's music and doing something with it. Sampling. But sampling, I don't like to think of it as, it is a form of, in legal, and like, if you want to get technical, yes, it is copyright infringement, but there's a tasteful way to do it. And when I sample these musicians that I love and like these records I love, I want to do something with it rather than, I'm not just trying to take it and say it's mine. I want to do something. It's still their art, but I'm still like putting my touch on it or whatever. Right. I want to do something with it. Otherwise it's like, I just listen to the record. If I'm going to listen. I listen to these loops that people take, and I could just go listen to the record that came from, the Blossom Deary record that came from. I'll throw it on, and it's okay. The whole song is good. Yeah. I don't even need to loop it. Just listen to it. The whole song. It's a great record. I had that when I first started like really getting into engineering and was like interning in studios and stuff. I remember I sort of like kept the fact that I made hip hop to myself for the sampling stuff, because I knew I was like, these guys are older, like they probably don't really get it. These are all like guys who worked on like Metallica records like, and all this stuff and much of the stuff that like we were sampling, at the time, and like old soul music and stuff. And I remember one of the guys, he was just sort of like, sampling, like you just, he's like, more than anything, you're taking money. He was like, you're taking money out of the pocket of engineers. Yeah. And he's like, because who the fuck do you think took all the time to record that? Sure. They weren't getting paid good to begin with. And now because you're creating your music without the need for a studio, you're putting out of work an entire sector of people. And frankly, it is true. It's not sampling that did it. It's technology. It's not the sampling is not the issue there. The issue is the accessibility of technology. Yeah. But it's like, it's interesting to see that other side of it where it's just like, people got real strong feelings about it one way or the other generally, That.
But I also think it's important to realize, and I think most of the commercial music industry is realizing this now, is that you're not going to have new music. Right. If you don't have some leniency on sampling, because every major pop song that comes out has some sort of sample in it. Has the James Brown Orchid, especially in the 90s. Right. Has the every drum and bass track that you like is going to have the Amen break. Right. Anything. It's like James Brown's going to be sampled forever. Billie Eilish songs have samples. All these big, huge superstars have samples in their shit. So you need to. You're not gonna make money off new music if you don't have some sort of sample. Everything's been done. I hate to say that, but everything's been done in every aspect of art, I think.
Well, here's a question for you. So I would say probably fairly that you're more of like a traditionalist when it comes to some of the hip hop stuff.
That's just what I like to do, and that's what I do. But
how do you feel about the sampling of new material? Like, I know, there's a lot of talk amongst hip hop producers, nothing in the last 20 years, or, whatever it may be. I've heard all sorts of things from different people, but
what you sample, I don't care where you sample from. As long as you do something, you put your own touch on this original thing, other than just lifting it.
Sure.
Because that's the whole art form, is like doing something with other stuff. You got to do something with it. Otherwise, it's just nothing. It's what it was already. It's already great. You're not making it better.
Right. So you got to do something with it.
Yeah. No, I don't care. I sample from everything. I'm not one of those snobs that's like, I know a lot of these dudes are like, you can only sample records. You can only. It's like some of these records that I want,
1968 to 1970.
Well, some of these records I want are like are like thousands and thousands of dollars, and I know I'm never gonna see them.
Right.
So of course I'm gonna sample from YouTube, and I'd love to have the original. But whatever, dude. Like, I sample from movies, I sample from commercials, like you do. I sample from the radio. I sample from just go out and record things. I don't know.
I love. Like, sometimes I'll sit and watch Netflix on my computer running through my system, and then it's like just sitting back watching shows and hearing bits of score and stuff. Exactly. And then it's just like,
big time,
grab that, you know, just like, grab that one.
It's all about collaging sound. It's like cutting up pieces of paper and from a magazine and making a picture.
And the thing about art that is drawn from samples that will always be more powerful, like, than... or always has the ability to be more powerful than original art, is because when you sample things, you have all of the connotation and everything that comes with that sample, all of the memories, etc., and then you can build on top of that. So it's like having an entire ideological foundation before you've even done anything.
Adds another layer to create feeling.
Exactly.
Right? Because there's already feeling from the source material. It's like how you mold that together, right? Exactly.
Things make something new out of it. Right. That's what's so brilliant to me. That's why, like, Pete Rock, he always was able to, he'd take like 6 different records and like somehow make all these things blend together in the same key. That's insane to me. You know? Yeah. Like that kind of stuff. That really, there's a talent there. There's like a formula there that is really special, I feel like, and it takes a lot of practice to figure that out, and I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't know, but like, I think that's why I love this. That's what it's like treasure hunting or something, and it's like, I don't know, it's rewarding when you're able to do shit like that,
Yeah, for me, like, the most rewarding thing is like when I hear a sample and I'm like, well, where is that from? And then I can like trace it and then go find the original song. It always makes me very happy.
Yeah, then you listen to the original, it's like, oh wow, this is incredible.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
So we want to obviously thank you for coming in. Obviously you didn't
thank you so much.
Exclusively come down to Portland just for us, but it makes me feel like
well, I already had a couple things here.
I guess we're just the third stop on the road.
Nah, man, always come down and fuck with you, man.
Oh yeah,
it's nice to meet you too, man.
You as well, man. I feel like I've been hearing about you for years and years and years, I'm glad we got the chance to finally meet. Thank you so much for coming down and doing this, man. It's always
Before you take off, what kind of future projects do you want to tease? Is there any music that people can look forward to potentially hearing?
Everybody wants a beat tape, so I'm gonna do that. I got so many beats just on this, and I need to just get recorded. So I've been like just digitizing a lot of stuff. I got shit on tape reels I'm just putting into the computer. So there will be an instrumental thing coming out. I got a project with Joe Mousepad we've been working on for way too long. It needs to come out, a rap album.
This guy's got one too with Joe Mousepad.
Yeah.
Been working on for way too long.
Joe Mousepad.
Right?
I feel left out.
Hey,
I got a little like EP that might turn into an album with my man Mocha Only. It's long overdue. We've been making music together forever, so I got something with him. And then my main man, my boy Brief 78, you know about him. Him and I, we put out a record together like 12 years ago. It was really my first big
G-Wiz, right?
G-Wiz Dope. Our group is called G-Wiz, and the record was called Dope Definite. and that really put me on the map big time. And it's probably still to this day like I pride myself the most on that record, because I was just so hungry back then, and I was so young. I was like, when I was making a lot of those beats, I made them before way before that record came out. But a lot of stuff I was making when I was like 17, man. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Oh. And I listen to that stuff now, and I'm like, I don't think I could ever make anything like that, because I was in a totally, nowadays, because my brain was in a totally different mindset. I was learning.
It's like totally fresh. Yeah.
So we got a record we've been working on pretty tough. We're just trying to like whittle down we got a whole big stack of songs. We're just trying to fine tune it a little bit, and that should be coming out eventually. And then I just got weird little things here and there. I want to do another album with like just a Seattle record that's just all my people in Seattle. I want to do something with Specs and Black and Vitamin, Leland, Zach, my boy Dave Sy. Probably getting Neil Matchroom on there, even though he's in New York now.
Yeah, his shit's getting really good though. Like, I mean, he's always been good, but like his last record, Here's to Tomorrow, like chef's kiss. Yeah, I really liked that record. So. Yeah. So, I just want to do something for the city of Seattle. I want to do something like that with the people that really inspire me, and I think it's important, dude. And that's kind of what I got. I'll probably do a series of beat tapes. I'm gonna try to do like a series, like a part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. I mean, I don't know if it'll be per sampler, like a SP12 one, or an MPC one, or just like different collections of beats, whatever. Because that needs to come out. My buddy came through Vitamin, and he was like, yeah, like everything. It's like you can't just sit on all this stuff. You can't just
it's hard not to, though, right?
Jake once said the same thing when he came over too. I was playing shit. He's like, you can't just sit on all this shit, B.
Put it up for the children.
Yeah, I'm such a weird. It's like I don't know. Like I said, I do it for myself, dude. A lot of times I just do it because it keeps me mentally healthy, and it gives me something to do. And
yeah, you create for yourself at the end. Of the day.
Yeah, and I just I can be kind of hermit with it. I'll put videos up for people to. I'm like, oh, that's in my brain. I'm like, oh, there, I put that beat out for you. There you go. You can watch this video. But I need to actually put some shit out. And then after since Shadows came out, it's just been this like, them old man passed. It's just been kind of this weird thing. Like, I got to try to top that record, and I've just been so stressed out.
You should never compare your next project to your past
I know,
project.
and that's the best advice you ever gave me, actually.
Also, so hard not to do, though.
Yeah, and it's like, what? And then I realized, like, it's not about.
I mean, we
trying to top that. We just put it out.
Right.
Put it out. Daedalus told me that when I was kicking it with him. He's like, yeah, dude, that shit's just gonna sit on a hard drive. If you don't like it, somebody else is gonna like it. Save everything.
Yep.
Yeah. So I've been trying to steer my brain in that direction.
Well, worst case scenario, you and I will make a record together. But,
no.
Okay. Never mind then.
No.
On that note, we are going to say thank you for tuning in to Below the Noise. You can go ahead and where can we find you, Wiz? Where can the people find you?
Locked up in this basement. Who are you? No. I'm just Google Wizdumb, Wizdumb, all caps. It'll come up. I'm on Bandcamp, Instagram, Wizdumb 206, Wizdumb 206 on almost every social media platform. Just remember you spell that right. Wizdumb. Put this on the screen.
Screen it.
Right here. It's right here. There you go. Boom, boom.
It's not going to happen.
All right.
It might be down there.
There you go. Put it somewhere. Right here.
Yeah, there you go.
Put it on my face.
Yeah. You can find me on there. You can find me. I DJ a lot. That's kind of what I've been focused on lately, just playing records. But you find me at Nacho Baracho and Revolver in Seattle a lot. Lo-Fi, which is closing soon. Rest in peace, Lo-Fi. That was like our clubhouse, man. Yeah, you find me online. Just look it up, Wizdumb. Sweet, you'll see it. All right.
Shit, sick, man. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. Good night.